Good evening, everybody. Welcome to downtown Lakewood. Wait, let me take that back. Cool downtown Lakewood. All right? How appropriate. My name is Jay Ferran, and I'm a board member of LakewoodAlive. And we're very excited tonight to present a program, The Bailey Building and Beyond, Downtown Lakewood's Renaissance. I'm sure you've seen a lot of things change over the recent years. It's been 5 years since Lakewood implemented, or began implementing, because it's a continuous process, I'm sure, the Main Street program. We thought it was a perfect occasion to sort of update the community on the progress of the Main Street Downtown Lakewood program. Additionally, couldn't have been a better place to do it than right here in the Bailey Building, which has been a mainstay in downtown Lakewood, well, as long as Geiger's has been, I guess. And the Bailey Building didn't succeed quite like the Geiger's business has, but we think there's a bright future for this building and for many buildings and merchants in the city of Lakewood. We're very, very optimistic. The last time I was in this particular building, I think I was 12 years old, and I was just a floor below buying the electric knife. The first electric knife that came out, I bought it with my own money. First time I was ever able to buy a Christmas gift with my own money for my mom. So I have special memories of the Bailey Building. I'm sure many of you that have been in Lakewood for a while have equal memories. And we're, again, very excited that you're here tonight. We're very excited about what's going on, and we're very excited to tell you some of the things that you might not know about what's going on in downtown Lakewood. I want to get the program off and running, but before we do, I just want to reiterate that LakewoodAlive is a 501c3 nonpartisan economic development organization. It's been in existence for about 6 or 7 years. Seems a little bit longer. But hopefully you've seen some of the benefit, or you have yourself gotten involved and seen some of the rewards that come with participating with LakewoodAlive. We're feeling that we have lots of organizations that we work with on a daily basis and feel really good about those relationships. Feel very strongly about the relationship we have with the city of Lakewood, the administration, our outgoing mayor, and I'm sure whoever the mayor is coming forward, we're going to have a continuous great relationship. So without further ado, let me introduce Nathan Kelly, Director of Planning and Development for the City of Lakewood.
Thanks, everybody. So I was asked to talk a little bit about our economic development strategy. I'm kidding. I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about what we decided we weren't going to do. Let me begin first by saying thank you all for coming on behalf of Mayor Fitzgerald and Lakewood City Council. It's a pleasure to be invited by LakewoodAlive and to be inside this building that is transforming, the Bailey Building. We have a great development partner in Kowit-Passov. Brad Kowit and his team have been a joy to work with. By working with us and LakewoodAlive, it shows what that teamwork that Jay mentioned can do. And we're working very hard to help his building be a success. But ultimately, all of the stuff that you're going to hear about that LakewoodAlive has done, and the Renaissance up and down Detroit Avenue and Madison Avenue, we sometimes get up on podiums like these and take credit because we have these jobs. But all of the risk happens from the people that are investing in downtown. All of the reward for those risk takers comes from the folks that Trish Rooney are going to talk about. You guys, buying local and investing in your city and your schools and your library and creating those resources that make activities like this happen. Off message a little bit, I want to get back to what we don't want to do. A lot of times economic development is thought about as hitting huge home runs. The Rockport project, which we're proud of, it takes a lot of time and resources to just one singular success. Some people probably remember the West End project. Huge, divisive. Maybe it would have been successful, maybe not. As Greater Clevelanders, we can look at other opportunities where we invest in these singular big things that are going to be home runs, like LeBron James, the Medical Mart, the casinos. And these are things that are oftentimes worthwhile endeavors, regardless of where you decide to take your talents. But we have to remember that we're here working to build a place where we want to live. Where are we going to be? The John Hancock building is on the Magnificent Mile. And so you have to think about, what are we building here? And that's why the Main Street approach that you're going to hear about a little bit later is so critical. So in our view, we've taken a smaller approach where we're playing small ball. So excuse the baseball analogy, but if we hit a number of home runs, instead of hitting home runs, we hit singles. We're hitting a lot of them, and we're winning. And I'd like to say that one more time without stepping on my own applause line. And we're winning. In pieces, we're building a place where people want to live, work, and play. And in many respects, we're using the Main Street approach citywide. Drew Siley is the city's lead planner and has been very engaging in getting all of the folks that are in this room and citywide engaged in things like Madison Avenue planning, Birdtown planning, bicycle and pedestrian planning, much like the streetscape planning for Detroit Avenue, which was led largely by LakewoodAlive, set the model for how we need to engage the community. And when you have an engaged community, you create a better project hitting singles instead of hoping to hit a home run. We also set standards. Historic preservation is important, not just because we like things that are old. New stuff you can find anywhere. I mean, what is the difference from Avon and some place that looks just like Avon in the middle of Ohio? Nothing. It's a commodity. But we have a city that is built with exceptional architecture and materials that was built to create an environment where people were living, they were working, they were walking to their work and to their shopping and to their schools. We're one of the only cities in the county, I think we're the only city in the county that doesn't have any school buses. It's because we're so walkable. So setting expectations for redevelopment is very important. We want to preserve what is unique about our community. And then also spreading the word. We have a lot of folks that are very engaged. That can be a blessing or a curse. But it's been a blessing for us, and it's been a blessing for all of us because it helps us spread the word in social networks, through the Lakewood Observer, what a tremendous asset that is. And that has a blossoming effect that allows us to win awards like the coolest city in the United States, top 10. One of the best places to buy a home in the Midwest, best place to raise your kids in Ohio. And these are things that are valuable marketing tools. I don't think that the science is very good, but I do know that they're valuable marketing tools to help us attract more folks that share our vision for a livable community. So the result has been $55 million in downtown development and $85 million in just commercial redevelopment and just new tenancy and expansion over just the past couple of years. And we're doing that together in one of the worst economies that we have faced as a country for generations. So it is my hope that we are setting the stage for when the economy starts to pick up. We're going to be very well poised to increase our property values, be a destination, fill all of these storefronts that you see. And by the way, I want to say our vacancy rates have been cut in half in the past 2.5 years. So that's been good. And for those of you that got to hear Councilman Summers speak a few minutes ago, Councilman Summers said, one of the assets of LakewoodAlive is that as a nonprofit, it can be nimble and it can move fast. By partnering with LakewoodAlive and other organizations, we can benefit from their ability to move quickly. Government can be dinosaurs, but when we partner, we can be more fast. We can hit singles and we can win. So how we plan to do that is a vision that we share with LakewoodAlive and also with Joyce Barrett, who's here to talk about her role as Executive Director of Heritage Ohio and the Main Street principles for redevelopment that we're doing largely citywide, but LakewoodAlive has been an award-winning entity to apply those principles here in downtown. So if you'd help me to welcome Joyce Barrett.
Good evening. Oh, you're going to hear not redundancy, but reinforcement. We're exactly on the same message. The Main Street approach, I didn't always know what that meant either. I thought every town has a Main Street, but this is actually a trademarked approach by the National Trust for Historic Preservation. Back in the late 60s, early 70s, people were calling the National Trust and saying, I don't get it, they're tearing my town down. How do we stop them? How do we stop them? That's when the malls took over, that's when the downtowns failed. And what we started getting was Generica, just like Nathan said. Main Street is the anti-Generica. We make policy decisions that give us the community that we want. Just like Lakewood, you have walkable homes with tree-filled lined streets, and you have kids engaged. One of the policy decisions that's been really important that we've seen in Lakewood is the renovation of your schools, so that you have generations of schools, generations of people, families going to the same schools, and involving your youth is critically important to your future. The Main Street approach, Heritage Ohio coordinates this on behalf of the National Trust. Currently, we're in 36 communities around Ohio, and we're in about 12 communities in junior tier programs. Main Street, at its very basic, requires a paid manager to kind of understand that. I don't know what one of your malls is here in the Cleveland area, but imagine going to that mall and say they didn't have a manager at all. You'd go, well, it'd be chaos. Well, that's what downtowns were when people stopped investing in them. All of our Main Street communities are required to have a work plan that specifies what their goals are, what are the tasks they're going to do, who's going to do it, when's it going to get done, how much is it going to cost. You use those work plans, obviously, to incrementally get things done, but you use those work plans to engage volunteers because they understand where they fit in the bigger picture, and you use those work plans to do fundraising, to show your investors this is what we're getting done, and they can see the timeline and how it's tasked out, and you will achieve those things when it's tasked out. Small bites, incrementally, you can get anything done. One of the other things we do, Heritage Ohio provides ongoing training for managers and volunteers. So Mary Ann goes to trainings that we provide. Many of your board members have been to trainings. It's like any of the other professions. If you sit in your own little box, are you really going to start thinking of new ways to achieve and accomplish things? One of the terms we use in Main Street is R&D, which many of you are familiar with, research and development, but we call it rip off and duplicate. One of the other standards for the Main Street approach is accountability and evaluation. All of our Main Street organizations are required to submit monthly report. They keep track of the statistics of how many buildings have been invested in facade improvements. They keep track of new businesses opened, how many new full-time jobs, part-time jobs, how many came in, how many were lost, how many volunteer hours that have been invested in the community. So we have a lot of statistical data that the board can look at locally and determine, do we need to respond to this? Do we have business loss in this sector or something like that? So Mary Ann can tell you at any moment in time what your annual statistics are, how many jobs have been, whether there's a net gain or a net loss in the downtown district. And the final thing, which is the most important, is grassroots commitment. It isn't like you can hire somebody to do a whole downtown revitalization. It takes all the people in this room, and all those people at home are the ones that make downtown revitalization happen. They need you for small volunteer projects and big volunteer projects, but it does not happen if the people are not involved. The 4-point approach is about balance. A lot of times when you're out someplace, they'll tell you, we did downtown revitalization, see, we got new benches. Well, that's only a tiny part of the puzzle. We have all of our Main Street programs are balancing, they're juggling organization, promotional activities, economic restructuring, and design. You have to be doing all of these things simultaneously to be effective and successful. So I'm going to run through what the definition of each one of these is quite quickly so you understand that it's really a comprehensive template that you're following. The elements of the organization, this is true for essentially any organization, whether it's your library board, your school board, or something like that. You build coalitions and partnerships. Here in Lakewood, as well as all of our Main Street communities, it's critically important that they're involved with the city government. We have a contract with LakewoodAlive, which is co-signed by the municipal government as well. It's that important. But they're also building other partnerships with the school district, with the library, with the Chamber of Commerce. Managing volunteers and staff, like I said, it's grassroots. Managing all these volunteers, getting you into the slot that you feel most comfortable and successful with. Fundraising, I don't know what the budget of LakewoodAlive is, but I'll tell you, they raise it through sponsorships, fundraising events, and donations from the general public. So they are dependent on you in that respect too. Public relations and output, and managing their financial and operations, their financial pro formas or their budgets and the operations of the office and the staff. So again, that critical partnership with your municipal government is important. The elements of promotion, the second point, are image promotion, retail promotion, special events, and experience tourism. Image development starts, I know that you have the new Lakewood logo and all the wayfinding that's been going on, but you want to be able to identify very quickly who Lakewood is just by that image. The shop local, identifying and coalescing the merchants so that you know where to shop and you know the value that is placed in that local engagement. This happens to be a picture from Oberlin that has a really strong shop local, only in Oberlin dollars program. Special events is something that's often confused. Lakewood does a lot of really great special events. The special events are a strategy to get people accustomed to being downtown. They're not necessarily a promotional activity to get cash registers to ring. We look at the distinction, and those special events aren't just willy-nilly, somebody had a creative idea. There's a strategy behind choosing an event, choosing the demographic that identifies with that event, and how that will ultimately strengthen the businesses downtown. The experience economy, we used to refer to this kind of as heritage tourism, but it wasn't always a good fit, and sometimes it was kind of a Dullsville fit or something like that. This happens to be a photograph from Greenville, Ohio. KitchenAid make their mixers in Greenville, and this is the KitchenAid experience. So that store turns it into an experience. They are always cooking. They have bus tours coming in, and they're cooking, and they're making things with their product, and then they're selling their product. So you don't have to have George Washington slept here, but anything that you can involve the experience, the activity of your visitors in your downtown, it can be anything, cooking, things like that. The elements of economic restructuring is kind of the businessy part of Main Street. We talk about market analysis, business, retention first, expansion second, recruitment third. You create a really strong, solid business environment first. You go to your current investors next and say, hey, you know what? There are no Chinese restaurants down here. Do you think you could expand into that market before you go chasing somebody else? It's easier to retain a customer than to get a new customers. It's easier to expand existing businesses. So that's really important to make a strong, solid foundation for your business environment with who's been investing here in the long run. Business recruitment and development, and then the last step is getting more engaged in property development. This is a slide that isn't perfect, but you can see the orange carpet lounge on the left, and it isn't a very, well, I wouldn't go there. Maybe some of you would risk it, but I'd be thinking, that's kind of a shady place. This guy rehabilitated his building, 25% business increase immediately. Now, my version is if he'd done it right and put windows on the ground floor, he might have seen a 50% increase. But the building rehabilitation to good standards will have a huge impact on the business that's inside. This picture kind of represents how important it is to engage with the city. We visit a lot of communities where the ordinances are in conflict to the goal of kind of the business community. One of the things we see a lot of times, we'll go to a community where sidewalk cafes are actually prohibited by law, and it's like, no, this is the 21st century. Let's get our ordinances updated. So it is a review with that partnership, making sure it might be water tap fees, it might be sewer things, it might be the exposure on sidewalk for sidewalk cafes, but making sure the ordinances are the right fit for your business community. And then finally, really looking at your buildings, how can we engage upper floor housing that on the or upper stories in your downtown that will really enhance the walkability and the hip factor in Lakewood? I wanted to review very quickly that an empty storefront is more than just, well, that landlord's been sitting there with an empty building, but there's huge cost to the community. There are no sales going on, so you're collecting no sales tax for your county, and your city has no employees in there, so there's no income tax for your city. The property taxes are probably going to be reduced if it's vacant. You've got to have that coming in to county government, but also auxiliary businesses, that loans, banks are losing business because there isn't a business in there, so their opportunity to make loans and do business. Your newspaper's losing revenue, your printers are losing revenue. Everybody in your community are losing revenue when you see empty storefronts. It's not just the building owners alone. So that's another reason to really engage on strengthening the economy in downtown. The last of the 4 points I'm going to talk about very quickly: education, technical assistance, and public design. I didn't say at the beginning, I wish I had, one of the things that Ohio's got is historic buildings. Ohio's number 3 in the nation for buildings listed on the National Register, and because of the size of Ohio, we're behind New York and Virginia. We very well might have more historic properties than any other state. So the potential is not to ignore it, but to take advantage of that asset and run with it. Educational tours. I know the Lakewood Historical Society gives tours. Get people looking at the architecture you have. I'm sure a lot of you have said, well, there's nothing really special down there. But when you stop and you look at these buildings and you learn more about their history, you will learn that you do have more special architecture in this district than you realized. The second point was technical assistance. This is when the organization tries to provide a little bit of assistance to building owners as being a resource, helping them find the right expertise or learn the right techniques of dealing with a historic building. You can see on the left side, that building owner has done windows right. On the right side, is there something wrong with that picture? And what's sad about it is somebody has invested money, somebody convinced them that was a good decision, and that has devalued the opportunity for that building for a long time until somebody's going to rip those out and replace it. It just makes the whole block look bad, just like they were saying earlier. One poorly kept house drags down the whole block. That's true of downtown buildings when they make mistakes like this. Finally, I know Lakewood's been very engaged in public design improvements. So many times we have seen planners that just plop a bench every 20 feet, whether it makes sense or not, but really planning with it. It's a way that you can enhance the experience that the city's having by having the community engaged in those decisions. These are some of the statistics that we keep for Main Street. This is in essentially the last 10 years, what we've seen across the state of Ohio, and $560 million invested in all these little communities. All of this adds up. And we're still seeing, even in these bad economic times, the Main Street communities that have a program going are at a more strategic advantage than people who are doing nothing. And when you're out going around other cities, other states in the country, please look for Main Street signs, National Main Street winners. These are a few of them. And I'm hoping that Lakewood will submit their nomination to be a National Main Street community sometime.
Good evening, everyone. So nice to see you. I'm Mary Ann Crampton. I'm the executive director of LakewoodAlive. And what I like to say is that I have the greatest job in Lakewood because I get to help facilitate the hopes and dreams of the residents and what they have the vision that they have for this community, and we try to make those dreams come true. Tonight we're going to talk about downtown Lakewood over there in the right-hand corner, but we do have programs both in housing outreach. We're trying to protect our Lakewood's housing stock. It's the linchpin of our economic health. Community engagement, that's where you are today. Thank you, the Community Engagement Committee, for making this night possible. Then we have our standing committees, finance, make sure that we've got enough money to do what we're doing. Governance committee that makes sure that we have the highest standards of nonprofit practices. And the development committee that is helping us engage the community in raising funds for the organization. So as we've heard several times now, Main Street's a volunteer-based and it's a disciplined program. So you're working on how the downtown district looks and how it functions at the same time with equal priority. We also have, and this will be consistent, hearing this reinforcement about Nate had to say and then what Joyce had to say, there are these 8 principles of the Main Street work that we are applying here in our work in Lakewood. It's comprehensive. So again, we're working on how it looks and functions. There's not that silver bullet. Gee, if we had a crate and barrel in downtown Lakewood, all of our problems would be solved. If we had beautiful overflowing flower baskets like they have in Vermilion, all of our problems would be solved. It's all those things and then some other things too. It's incremental. We take great pride in small successes because we know they're the building blocks to our future. Self-help, the volunteer-based aspect, partnerships. We've heard it over and over again with the city, with the businesses, with other nonprofit organizations. That's what makes Lakewood work. We work on existing assets. We're not trying to bring in something brand new to make Lakewood something other than what it authentically is. And we have a lot to work with here, and you can see the progress. It's all about quality. We'd rather do smaller things very, very well than to take on a project that can't be executed at the highest level. And it's about change. If we're doing things the same old way, then we're not making progress. So change is hard on some levels, and it takes a lot of work, but it's worth it. And we're implementation oriented. We're not about doing a whole lot of studies here and what market analysis and what's missing and what could we do and making wish lists and those sort of things. We're about identifying projects that we can take action on and implement in the immediate future. I just put this up because I started looking through slides for when I first came on, and that was in 2007. And our office was in the chamber here right next door where the lobby of the building is now. We were so excited when Serial Central said they were going to come in. We thought, at last, this was our first sign of revitalization. We were going to have something new. We were so excited. We can't tell. And it failed spectacularly. We have come so far on so many levels. But the one thing about this is that this fellow, even though he really didn't have a clue how to manage a business, he saw the potential. He was hearing the buzz about Lakewood, and that's why he wanted to invest here. We now have 25 places in downtown Lakewood where you can get something to eat. Oh, this is my other project. This is the Marion Crampton project. I hated that door. And I really think communities, people, you should dress for the job you want to have, like you're telling the kids. And this absolutely made me crazy. So this is my first project. And I got them to paint it. And again, I was like, oh, what a rock star. And you'll see later, how beautiful that area looks today. So Jay, I think, or Nate maybe said that we were role models, but actually this community has a long-standing tradition of engagement of its residents and doing the right thing for the right reasons. And the schools, I put the pictures of the buildings because that's such a tangible evidence of the work we've done and the importance of it. It's so spectacular. But it's inside out. It's not just the outside. It's what's going on the inside and our appreciation, our support of our children and our future. And similarly, the library, before we were coming on board, the library was putting hours and years of work into planning their near future. And look at the spectacular landmark and anchor we have to our Main Street district, the envy of communities across Ohio, across the United States. Wouldn't they love to have something like that? And we're really proud. So then we get into the business community, and Geiger's, they're our role model too. Look at what they've done, where they were, and when I put in these second picture up on top, that midge, you kind of look at that and say, oh, that was so ugly. But at the time, it was the right thing. We felt like the library. maybe that didn't come out right. What I meant to say was, at the time, it was beautiful. And the Geigers are a role model in that way, in that they have adapted, as all these other institutions have done, has said, we're going to be relevant, and we're going to be current, and we're going to service. But what we know now is kind of our roots are a good thing, and that authenticity and taking pride in those original structures and services, and then adapting the goods inside. And we are just so lucky to have Geigers on our team. Okay, so because we're Lakewood, we did things in a different order than maybe a traditional or a typical Main Street community. We delve in right at the top to do the streetscape plan. And this came about when Lakewood Community Progress, Inc., which was our name before we merged with LakewoodAlive, that was that 501c3 structure, and that was so important because it allowed the city to attract funding that could not be accessed through the government or through like a member association such as the chamber, but a 501c3 could do something like take on a streetscape project and get support from NOACA, who gave a $75,000 grant award to the city and LakewoodAlive to do the streetscape program. And what we did is an analysis. We had several public meetings. It was facilitated by city architecture, and we analyzed the existing conditions, and we asked people, what do you like, what don't you like? You can see all these post-it notes, and it's really great. You can still read them up close. We have records of all these materials. And we got the community engaged in their vision for the downtown district. And the goal of this particular project was to simplify Detroit Avenue. We wanted to make the traffic patterns more predictable. You might remember it was like a lane and a half here, and then like 7 lanes wide down by Bunce, and then, then you're kind of crawling down in between, like in this area. So we wanted to take care of that. We wanted to make it a little better for pedestrians, and we got it. We finished it, and this is a 154-page document. And it was adopted by City Council, and what it's done is help drive activity by investors in the district, because now they know where Lakewood's headed. They know we have a plan. So now, like I said, we don't want to spend a lot of time studying. You got to have a plan in order to get funding and in order to execute. So the first thing we did was the cost of paint, essentially, was restripe downtown Lakewood. And I say we, this is the city. The city did this. I mean, we helped come up with the plan, and then we worked together, like, what are the things we need to implement? You'll remember that principle. So they restriped it, so we have parallel parking most of the way down on both sides of the street, 1 lane of traffic in each direction, a turn lane in the middle, and I think most of you would agree that the traffic is flowing so much better, and it's calmer, and it's just a better place to be. So the streetscape plan then also identified the opportunity that we need signage for so many reasons. We've had several conversations with potential businesses, retailers here that have come in from outside of Lakewood, and the first question they'll ask me is, where is downtown Lakewood? We need to establish a sense of place down here, and signage will allow us to do that. We were lucky enough, again, because of our nonprofit status, because of our status as a Main Street community through Heritage Ohio, we got a $43,000 grant to design a whole wayfinding and signing plan. We got some money, thanks to Representative Kucinich, and we are actually going to be able to see this implemented over the next 12 to 18 months, and Nate might be able to give us an update on that. Okay, so here's some of the results. So now we have a streetscape plan, we have a signage plan, so now Nate has some funds, about how he works with people and how he wants to try to attract businesses, and they're like, oh, this is a happening place. And so then, we can facilitate investment, and look what happened there, and it's just beautiful. And similarly, it's not LakewoodAlive per se, it's the energy, and then it's the city being able to build on what we've got going down here. This, we're all so happy about this. The Bailey building and the Panera Bread having life on that corner. You remember for years and years, we had empty space, and then the Curves was in there, but it was all kind of blocked off. And it's just great to have a nice warm yellow glow there in the evening, and people coming in and out all day long. So we've been working with the city. We also have volunteers work on design principles, because design guidelines are like the law on exactly what you're allowed to build build and how it looks like and what the setback's going to be and so on and so forth. Well, we don't have that quite yet, but what we could do is come up with design principles. And some of the people that worked on these are in the audience today, worked for a year and a half to come up with these 5 points. It said, okay, if a developer's coming into Lakewood, keep this in mind. We might not have laws around this yet, but this is where the community wants you to be. This is what we want your development to look like. So we're working with the city for formal adoption on those. We talk a lot about finding opportunities in unexpected places. This is the back door here of the Bailey building. If you park in the back and come in to the INA building from the rear, we're really big on making it a pleasant experience from the moment you park until the point you get into the business. The Melt patio, how fabulous. That was an alley. It's just really nice. And Deegan's, we started talking to Dan Deegan before he even had the lease at First Federal. We really, really wanted to be in Lakewood, really, really wanted to be in that space. And we talked to him, and I know you all know this too. You drive into that First Federal parking lot, and you're like, where's the restaurant, And it was creepy walking in that back door, and it was dirty, and you couldn't see anything. And he overachieved. It is, I hope you agree, it's a really beautiful space coming in there, a very welcoming, inviting space, and I think he's got a winner. Design also called blossoms. I really like flowers. Flowers are really, really expensive for communities to take on. We wanted to figure out a way to do that. So what we did, and you probably see them around, we have these earth boxes. They're plastic boxes. They have about 3 inches of water reservoir in the bottom. And LakewoodAlive provides the service of having this year 41 boxes planted by a nursery. We deliver them in May, early June, and pick them up in September. And then we got community service workers, thanks to Judge Carroll, to fill them once a week. So now we have these beautiful flowers. Someday maybe we'll have the big hanging baskets, but with the wind and everything, it's going to be tough. In the meantime, I think this has really made a big difference, and Kathy Haber is the one that leads this project. Streetscape, we're just talking to the merchants about making it clean, making it pretty. Until we can do something really fancy, you can do some things yourself. And we work with the city on the banner program. And then promotion, this was the very first event that we brought downtown. As Joyce said, promotion is about bringing people into the city, figuring out what's down here, being comfortable in the environment, knowing where to park. And we decided to do bring Light Up Lakewood downtown. It had been a community event for a few years, but kind of spread out all over the city, and we wanted to do it downtown. And I think it's a new tradition for a lot of families, and it's great. Street Walk, we like that because we think it builds on our unique assets. It really celebrates our walkability, the fact that we have a hospital in the city, and about healthy living and being active. Spooky Pooch Parade, Joyce talked about rip off and duplicate. I went to training and they said, we had an analyst speak and he said, anything with pets, people are just spending all kinds of money on pets, anything you do with dogs, would be great. I told the promotion committee that, and Paula Reed said, well, I went to a great parade at Norwalk. They had a little pet parade, maybe we could do that. Well, here we go. We had our 3rd annual Spooky Pooch Parade this year. It was picked up on CNN last year. It's a huge success. Front Porch Concert Series, similar, worked with Lakewood as Art. They wanted a place for kids to play their music. I wanted to have music downtown. But as Joyce also said, we're not an event organization. That's not our goal. And there's nothing better than to have somebody else do an event down here. So we like to do a lot of cross-promotion. Of course, it's fabulous that we have the Arts Festival here 34 years, the Farmers Market, the Starry Night. So we're happy to cross-promote any activities in the downtown district, and we hope more organizations want to do their thing here. One of our greatest accomplishments of the year, the last 18 months, was the Downtown Lakewood Business Alliance, and I would love to have any of those business members stand up that are here tonight from our downtown Lakewood businesses. I know you're here. Yeah. These folks meet officially twice a month. They actually end up every Thursday morning at 8 o'clock. They're in our office. You can run into these guys. They are rock stars. We do the big events to bring people downtown. They work out events to bring people into their stores. Phenomenal success, a lot of fun. They all talk to each other. They support each other, helping each other with window displays, with promotion activities. It is the best thing that's happened. They're helping with holiday lighting. You probably have seen some of the cues. We're doing trimming the rooftops of the buildings. Now, each of the property owners are paying for that themselves, but it was the DLBA idea, like, let's coordinate it, and so then that's what we do. We go out and facilitate that, try to talk to the property owners and the businesses, say, let's get on board. It's going to be phenomenal. And as Joyce said, it's a retention first and attraction. First Federal, another gem. What do you say? I mean, they're 75 years here in Lakewood, and we are just so lucky. And now we have Deacons here with them. Lakewood Hospital, where to begin? I think I have another slide in here, just a phenomenal, our largest employer, a great community supporter. So now we have Panera Bread. Plantation Home's been around for a while. Great product across the price range. So always go in there when you're looking for gifts because they really have a lot of nice things. Two Dads right across the street. Lion and Blue's been down by the Phoenix Coffee building for a while. Lovely people, terrific product, and the whole global, international kind of products. Great people. And then Paisley Monkey and Tamara's here today. It's right there on Warren. Tamara's our first click-to-brick business. And that's someone who's been doing an online children's business for about 5 years. And she wanted to go retail. So we helped Tamara find a space. And we love having children's wear here. So please support her and check it out. It is fabulous. High-end, green, USA, all that's everything you want. So here's the hospital. I mean, I don't know what that goes unappreciated, but there was $1 million gift given to the hospital that was celebrated in August. Dr. Cummings, he's the second from the left. He's a world-renowned neurosurgeon. He runs the brain center for the Cleveland Clinic in Las Vegas. He is out here all the time. We are one of 4 brain centers for the Cleveland Clinic. There's one in main campus, of course, down in Florida and Las Vegas, and then in Lakewood, Ohio. And it is our future. So there's this whole vision for tomorrow, and LakewoodAlive had 2 community forums on this subject. It's really important that people understand because it has significant economic implications to the community. We're going to orthopedics, neuroscience, diabetes, and senior care are their focuses of excellence. You can see their investments so far this year, which is just part of what I know. Over $24 million has been invested in Lakewood at Lakewood Hospital over the past 3 years. So a very important community partner. Then we look at these examples of investment and growth. Theirs was the Geiger's building when Melt was getting started and Kathy's Sewing Center was there, and then she moved down the street. Now Melt's expanded. That's so beautiful. Root Cafe, if you knew the old Phoenix, and it was cool as the old Phoenix, but how fabulous is the new Root Cafe. Very, very successful business. You might not be familiar with this because it's edible arrangements, so a lot of us would maybe use them by phone. But they took the time and completely redid their interior lobby space last year, and it looks really nice and fresh and clean. Geiger's, what can we say? They found their wood floor, and it looks beautiful. I'm not sure that ceiling is going to stay that way, though. I think, in fact, it might already be gone. But how lucky we are. They continue to invest after so many years, continue to invest in the community. Here's Deegan's, the before picture. Notice the coolers and that green and that low ceiling, and there we were tonight. It's really pretty. So here we go, the end result. It's all about jobs and reinvestment. So all these companies have invested here. All of them are employing people. All of them are returning dollars and quality of life to the community. So the opportunities that are before us, we're talking to the hospital very seriously about this Curtis Block building because they've emptied it. We don't want it to be empty. It could be spectacular. A restored, rehabbed, historic building could be spectacular. We hope to make that happen. One of our big jobs is nagging. That it makes me so mad. And we got to take care of that. That's a garbage dumpster that you can see from Detroit. And so that's our role, though. And if you see stuff, call us or call the city. But we need to take care of stuff like that. We think there's some opportunity here in the TJ's Butcher Block, and we get all the way back to organization. If you're not in the loop, get on the loop, sign up for our e-letter. We send that about every 2 weeks. We have the LakewoodAlive.com website, the DowntownLakewood.org website, and of course we're on Facebook and on Twitter. So with that, we'll let Nathan talk about what's coming down the pike. Thank you very much.
So I'm supposed to talk a little bit about opportunities, and it occurred to me we're running a little bit behind. So I want to say the opportunities are everywhere. One quick example is right out here. There's a little construction happening. We received a grant for a transit waiting environment, which is fancy talk for a bus stop. And we're using that as part of the mayor's 2010 Public Art Initiative. And so keep your eye on it, because we had a great contest that the winner is now installing that transit waiting environment. And those opportunities exist everywhere, big and small. Backs of restaurants and bus stops, but also big things too. This is arguably the ugliest building in Lakewood. There was some talk a few years ago about raising this structure and building a whole new thing involving Kaufman Park, and I'm proud to say that Mayor Fitzgerald and City Council this year invested in Kaufman Park. We had a citywide parks master planning process that Drew Siley led out of the Department of Planning and Development. So those investments are continuing. The place is cleaning up nicely, and in front we're going to see four-sided redevelopment. Engaging the Main Street principles in our downtown Lakewood. What you're going to see is an example of what Joyce mentioned specifically, getting rid of the slant-in parking in front and replacing it with big wide sidewalks for outdoor dining and a huge pedestrian walkway. And a huge pedestrian walkway across the street from our brand new $17 million library that gets 11,000 visitors a week. So we're seeing that in the stepped parapets and the brick and the use of the sandstone. I mean, those sorts of things are important, and it doesn't look like what you're seeing in new construction elsewhere. So we're very, very happy about that. Rosie's Wine House is a staple in Main Street. And this is a building that looks very similar to something that Joyce mentioned. Beautiful historic architecture with a artistic finish. And we're looking forward to a storefront renovation here that is going to be a little bit old and new, using some modern appointments that benefit and leverage the historic architecture that building is. It's a great building right at the corner, right in the heart of our downtown. And this is an example of opportunities everywhere. We saw what happened at Root Cafe. We can see these things get done. And by the way, my goal when I started in this job a couple years ago was to make these the coolest places to live in Lakewood. And so we're working on it. And by the way, they may be very cool. Nobody's let me in. But that's what we're working on. This is probably the ugliest corner in Lakewood. It's also the biggest opportunity. At one point there was a plan to build a 4-story gym and retail office use, maybe residential use, and now we think that it'll be just a gym. Yeah, this is an example of a big plan. What happens when the financing doesn't come together because of the larger economy. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that funding happens, and if not, that we take that opportunity to have another excellent project right at the beginning of downtown. It's the second most traveled intersection in the city, and it needs to better reflect what our downtown should look like. I talked about all these little opportunities. The streetscape is a great opportunity. And you're going to start to see those improvements happen already. There's a whole bunch of new brick pavers that went outside just the past couple of days. We're going to start from right at the intersection that we're at right now and start to implement those improvements. You'll see the new arms for the streetlights go in over the next 2 years. That's going to be a multi-million-dollar project with new signage that'll happen next year, and we'll start to see some of those appointments happen. And this is also an opportunity of a partnership with multiple levels of government and LakewoodAlive to allow us to get some additional funding in addition to just using tax dollars, but getting a federal earmark to help us implement the plan. And now I'm going to introduce Trish Rooney. She's going to talk to us about buying local. And when I was speaking earlier, I was talking about how important it is that we're a team. We hit singles. And part of that is our collective commitment to continue to buy local and keep the people that are investing in our downtown and are occupying those storefronts busy. And we're going to see how important that impact is from Trish Rooney. Trish?
You might find it a little unusual that a director of an agency that's charged to take care of the most at-risk people in Lakewood would be at a symposium or a meeting like this, but a thriving, healthy Lakewood is important to all of us. And I was very excited when Mary Ann and Jay invited me to be part of this particular evening, because like Jay, I have great memories of the Bailey Building as a kid. Growing up in Lakewood, we had my brothers and sisters and I had 2 trips downtown. Trips with my dad were Geiger's, even though it was really ugly jazz. I'm really sorry. We still went all the time. His trips were Geiger's, Rosie's, and the State Store that used to be next to Rosie's. My mom's trips were Lakewood Library, Lakewood Juvenile Shoes, and Bailey's. So downtown Lakewood has meant a lot to our family for a very long time, and anybody who's as old as I am that's still awake will probably remember those years back in the 50s when this was very thriving. I'm going to talk about shopping locally. And when we decided to do this segment, we kind of brainstormed on a fun way to do it that wouldn't just be a bunch of numbers. So we decided that we would talk to real Lakewood residents who represent demographic groups that are have very strong presence in the city. And I went to my friends and colleagues and asked them to take part in this little experiment. It's not an exact science. There are different numbers you'll see bandied about how much money stays in a community when you shop locally. We chose to use the numbers provided by a group called 350. And they got their numbers from a consulting group in Chicago called Civic Economics. And basically what they say is 68 cents on every dollar that is spent in a locally owned store stays in the city. That's taxes, that's new jobs, and 43 cents on a local or a regionally owned company located in the city stays at home. We liked 350. That organization has a very, very simple concept. It says pick 3 businesses that you really don't want to leave and spend $50 at each of them every month. And Mary Ann, maybe if you'd spent $50 at the Cereal Central, it might still be here. It might still be here. So let me take you through our little experiment. And again, these are real people. This is the Lipka family. This is Amy, Ken, Sophie, Rosie, and Nora. They already make a very, very strong commitment to shopping, dining, and I kidded Ken, apparently drinking in Lakewood. And each of them took a week and kept track of all the money they spent. Now, it's interesting, you'll see on this slide that 2 places they couldn't get what they wanted in Lakewood. Target in Rocky River for household items, and Kohl's in Rocky River for clothes for the kids. This happened to be Sophie's birthday week, so you'll see some expenses probably that they're not going to spend every week, but we figured we're going to keep this because somebody's having a birthday every week in Lakewood. So they spent $861 that week, of which $722 were spent in Lakewood. If you break it down by which are locally owned and which are regional or national, the total economic impact back to the city from this 1 week of this family of 5 was $431. Pretty significant. This is Sarah Schuster-Tucker. She's also a real live Lakewood girl. She's a 24-year-old young professional who's getting her master's at Cleveland State. Sarah picked a week in October, and she pretty much shops locally as well. But again, you'll see 2 things stand out here. When she wanted clothes, she had to go to Rocky River for herself, and some little something she bought at Target for $11, not much. But she did make a concerted effort she took her grandmother to lunch at Aladdin's rather than a place closer to her grandmother's home. So she did actually work hard to spend her money here, and the impact of this one young woman is $155. Next group, this is Susan Grimberg, who's the community affairs manager at Lakewood Hospital, and her husband Bill, and looking lovely at their daughter's recent wedding. And they kept track, they did not buy anything outside of Lakewood for the week, And again, using the same math, they contributed 146 to that's the economic impact of their week. Then I started thinking about people like myself, although I was born and raised and spent almost my entire life in Lakewood. I now don't live in Lakewood, but I work in Lakewood. And there are a lot of us. If you look at the hospital, the schools, there are quite a few people who live outside but work in Lakewood. So what I did, and you'll see mine is only Monday through Friday, because that's when I'm here. Some of these places I always shop at anyway, but what I don't always do is buy food locally. I don't go to Simone's. Well, I probably go more than I should, but I don't go to Simone's always. And I don't always buy gas here. But I added those, and just for myself, for the 1 week, it was over $200. So if you look at the aggregate, in 1 week, these 9 people, and I included the kids in the math because I'm basing this on the total Lakewood population. In 1 week, the 9 people each contributed $100 back to Lakewood. If 100 people, which is probably the size of this audience, did the same thing, the impact would be $56,000 or $561,000. If only 1% of Lakewood's population, would be 500 people, did the same thing, in 1 year, the economic impact money that would stay in Lakewood for Lakewood would be $2,808,000. So we talked earlier about community engagement, what we can do. This is something each one of us can do to help grow the tax base, keep jobs, support the schools, all the things that we've talked about that make Lakewood the vibrant place that it is. So I think it's a challenge. I don't think it's hard to do. I think you have to think about it. But we have wonderful stores. We had a period of time where there were great places and then not much, not great restaurants, not great places to hang out. That's all coming back, and there's really little reason to not spend your money here in town. So I make a challenge that we all go out and do this, and over the next 6 weeks, what better time is there to kind of put this into practice and make something happen where every one of us can feel like we've done something for the community. The other thing I think we can do is market this community to our friends who don't live here. There's great places to shop, there's great places to eat, there's great places to be. How great, instead of us, I live in Tremont, so instead of us always going to Tremont, how about I bring my Tremont friends here? It's not hard, it's a very, very, very easy sell right now. So thank you.